So talking about pronunciation, why is it so important to teach pronunciation? Can't we just teach them speaking?
Well, I think one of the reasons why pronunciation is so important is that it infuses everything. Obviously it infuses the way we speak, our pronunciation. It infuses the way we listen, because pronunciation also grips the ear, not just the mouth. Therefore it affects what we recognize. It infuses our writing. It's very hard to write something without saying it to yourself inside, certainly our students, and probably most native speakers. And it's very hard to read without sounding the sounds inside, certainly our students. You also use pronunciation when you're remembering. You look at a phone number as you're dialing. How do you remember it? By listening to your inner ear saying it. You use it when you're thinking, because most of us speak at least part of the time when we're thinking. So it's very hard to get away from pronunciation in all activities that concern language.
But if we're teaching a speaking class, won't we naturally do some pronunciation, maybe some correction of pronunciation in that? I mean, do we need to spend extra time on pronunciation?
The problem with just teaching speaking is that once we've learnt our first language, we become habitually gripped in the musculature of pronunciation muscles by the pronunciation of the first language. We have the grip of the mother tongue. So if you just speak the new language, you speak it with the grip of the sounds of the mother tongue. You can change one or two a little bit, but not very much. So if you want English in Spanish sounds, then just teach speaking.
Okay.
But as you know, when you go on the airline and you hear the Spanish stewardess announcing things, you can't tell when she's gone from Spanish to English because the rhythm doesn't change at all.
Okay. So as a teacher then, why is it sometimes difficult to teach pronunciation maybe? Why is it difficult to teach the sounds or the intonation? And why is it difficult for students to learn pronunciation? Is it difficult?
Well, personally, I don't think it is difficult, but I think teachers are traumatized by it. And while students come along not expecting any particular worries, I think the teacher, this is not the only way, and I'm exaggerating to make a point, I think that the teacher soon gets them worried. First of all, the teacher says good when the students can hear it isn't. So they begin to suspect something already. And then that they see that the teacher doesn't really have the means with which to change that pronunciation, except sometimes and by accident perhaps.
But isn't it, I mean, aren't we aiming for like comprehensible pronunciation from our students?
Yes, we're not aiming for native-like pronunciation at all, that's an option, but it's not what we're aiming at. But we are aiming at comfortable intelligibility for both parties, both speaker and listener. And you ask what stands in the way. Well, I think there are two things. One is that students and teachers lack a matrix, a map, which tells them what's got to be done. What is there to do? What's this all about? And they read lots of books, but never does it add up to a simple, single map. Now, quite by chance, we have sitting between us here such a map. And I'll say something about that in a moment. And that enables everybody to see what's got to be done, what's it all about, that it is finite, that there's only that. And the second obstacle, I think, which perhaps is an even bigger obstacle, is that pronunciation is taught as if it's a kind of cognitive or mental activity, and actually it's a physical activity. It requires muscles to move, and we've got to learn new movements. So it's rather like teaching a kind of subtle inner dance, and the only way to learn a new dance and new movements, to get away from your habitual movements of before, is to really contact those muscles. If you're trying to learn a dance, you learn to contact the muscles and then you can direct them differently. And it's the same with pronunciation. And to do that, there's no shortcut, but that the teacher has really got to explore the inside of the mouth, not from books, but from experience, and find out how they make sounds. And once they get in there, they find actually it's a very simple matter.